There's a cup of coffee cooling on a table somewhere right now. 10 minutes and it's lukewarm. 30 and it's cold. A cup of coffee cannot hold its temperature for half an hour. Earth has held its temperature for 4 billion years, and it shouldn't be able to. You're sitting on a rock, hurtling through the dark at 100,000 kilometers an hour, with 93 billion light years of freezing vacuum and nuclear fire in every direction. And somehow the surface stays warm enough for liquid water and gentle enough not to cook the skin off your face. We call that lane the Goldilocks zone, the habitable band. Here's the size of it. Move Earth 5% closer to the sun, a rounding error in cosmic terms, and the oceans boil into the sky. Permanently. That's Venus. Move it a little further out, and they freeze solid all the way to the equator. That's Mars. The survivable corridor is about 5 million kilometers wide. The universe is 93 billion light years across. Take a canvas the size of a continent, draw one pencil mark. That's the ratio. Earth is parked exactly on the mark. A coin that lands on its edge across a galaxy and just stays there. Convenient, isn't it? So the easy answer is distance. Right distance from the star, right temperature, done. That would be adorable. It's also wrong. A star throws energy out in every direction, and light spreads as it travels. Move twice as far away and you don't get half the light, you get a quarter. Butter scraped too thin across giant toast. Earth sits about 150 million kilometers out. Venus is 28% closer and melts lead on its surface. Mars is further out and freezes. 3 rocks, same neighborhood, 3 endings. Furnace, freezer, garden. Distance set the table. The atmosphere wrote the verdict. But the real problem isn't where Earth sits. It's that the Campfire keeps changing. In 1972, astronomers Carl Sagan and George Mullen were checking the young sun's output and hit something that didn't add up. 4 billion years ago, the sun was about 30% dimmer than today. Run the numbers, and early Earth should have been a solid ball of ice. No liquid water, no chemistry, nothing. They called it the faint young sun paradox. The math says frozen. The rocks say liquid water, and life were already here 3 billion years ago. The math and the rocks disagree, and the rocks were actually there. So how do you stay warm while your only heat source slowly turns itself up by a third? Earth runs a thermostat. When the planet warms, more rain falls, the rain pulls carbon dioxide out of the air and locks it into rock at the bottom of the ocean. The greenhouse effect weakens and the planet cools. Too cold, the rain stops. Volcanoes pump the carbon back up and it warms again. Geological, automatic, held on one comfortable setting for 3.5 billion years. For a system with no plan, it shows up oddly often to fix things. And a thermostat is useless if the house is being shelled. Earth's narrow lane is constantly swept by solar wind, streams of radiation moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour that strip the air off a planet like paint off a hull. That's not a theory. That's Mars. Mars had an atmosphere and lost it to exactly this. Earth didn't, because there's a ball of molten iron spinning at its core, throwing out a magnetic shield that catches the radiation and funnels it harmlessly to the poles. The deadliest thing in the neighborhood turned into the northern lights. Then there's the tilt. Earth leans at about 23.5 degrees, and that lean is what spreads the heat and gives us seasons instead of a boiled equator and frozen poles. But planets wobble. Earth doesn't wobble out of control, because it happens to carry a moon absurdly large for its size, anchoring that tilt in place. In 2000, researchers Peter Ward and Donald Brownlee at the University of Washington spelled it out. Strip away that oversized moon, and the axis swings into chaos, dragging the climate through catastrophic lurches over millions of years. Now stack them: distance, atmosphere, a self-correcting carbon cycle, a magnetic shield, a stabilizing moon, a star that lasts long enough. Each one is a dial. It's like staring at a bank vault with dozens of dials, spinning every single one of them blindfolded, and watching them all click open on the first try. And it runs deeper than the planet. If gravity were slightly stronger, stars would burn out before life could even start. Tweak the force that binds atomic nuclei by 2%, and protons refuse to bond. No atoms, no chemistry, no anything. The dials aren't only on Earth. Some of them are baked into the universe itself. A messy room doesn't open a safe. So what keeps spinning the dials? Fine, if it's just chemistry and physics doing what they naturally do, then we should be able to build one. We tried. In 1991, in the Arizona desert, scientists sealed 8 people inside Biosphere 2, a glass world with its own ocean, rainforest, desert, and savanna. $200 million. The goal? Prove humans could engineer a closed, self-sustaining slice of Earth. Within months, the oxygen started falling. The crew were gasping like they lived at 14,000 feet. The concrete was quietly eating oxygen out of the air. The soil bacteria went into overdrive and dumped carbon dioxide. The vines grew too fast and strangled the trees. Inside 2 years, they had to crack the seal and pump in oxygen just to keep everyone alive. $200 million and the best minds of a generation, and they couldn't balance the air for 8 people for 24 months. NASA has been working on closed-loop life support since 1967. They're optimistic about the 2080s. A single cyanobacterium in the ocean does it before breakfast. So today, we don't build habitable worlds. We hunt for them. The James Webb Telescope launched in 2021, aimed in part at reading the air of distant planets. In 2017, researchers at the University of Liège confirmed 3 worlds in or near the habitable zone of TRAPPIST-1, 40 light-years away. Magnificent machines. They're also confessions. We can't make a Goldilocks zone, so we're begging photons to point at one that already exists. As for terraforming Mars, peer-reviewed work from Harvard and the University of Colorado puts it at centuries to millennia, and the to-do list opens with generate a planetary magnetic field. We have no method for that, not a draft. An accident that keeps passing the engineering review humans keep failing. So pull the threads together. Our corridor 5 million kilometers wide, inside a universe 93 billion light-years across. A star that brightened by 1/3 while the surface stayed survivable the entire time. A thermostat with no thermostat. A shield with no engineer. A moon holding the axis dead steady. 6 windows all open at once, all staying open through ice ages and impacts and mass extinctions every day for 4 billion years without a single service check. We call it an accident because calibrated is a word the textbook isn't allowed to print. We call it a coincidence because the alternative is uncomfortable, but a coin doesn't land on its edge 1 billion times in a row. A safe doesn't open because the room is messy. Every number here was checked twice, which leaves one question, the one all the others have been circling. If nothing calibrated this, then why does it read, line by line, like something that was?